So Ben, we just got back from the Fjallraven Campfire Academy.
Yeah.
6 days in Arctic Sweden, where it was sunny for one day and pretty wet for the rest of it. So we've been back about a week, haven't we? So we thought it'd be a good time to go through our kit and tell the guys what we took. It's had a week to stew and fester, so let's kick off with it.
Yeah. Well, before we get too stuck into it, we should probably explain a little bit about what the Campfire Academy is.
Yeah.
Because whilst a lot of what we're going to show you in some of our B-roll is going to be us trekking on the same route as the Fjallraven Classic Sweden, so 110k through the Arctic Circle that ends in Abisko, starting in Nikolotka. I probably butchered that. Starting there, so we followed roughly the same route, but it was a little bit different.
Yeah. So I suppose, so I've not done a traditional classic before, but I do know that you have checkpoints basically throughout that, and at the checkpoints you've got toilet stops, opportunities to refill your toilet paper stash and your food as well. You don't have to take all your food with you, whereas with the Campfire Academy that we did, although it was the same route, you were self-supported. So there weren't the checkpoints. Took all of your week's worth of food with you, and basically everything you needed from start to finish.
So I have been lucky enough to do one of the Swedish classics a few years ago, and yes, exactly the same route, apart from a slight deviation at the finish. So our finish line was somewhere slightly different, a few miles down the road, a few kilometers. Sorry, we're going to be talking a lot in kilometers here. I should stick to one. But the whole route was exactly the same. Yeah, slightly more challenging conditions than last time when I did it, because as you say, we had one day of proper sun, the rest were quite a little bit wetter in parts, but we'll get into that a little bit more. But the idea of the Campfire Academy was that we actually had a day before we set off on the trek, where we had a number of sessions where we were learning about trail ethics, how to repack our food, how to pitch our tents in slightly adverse conditions. So trying to tool us up in the Campfire Academy to give us the skills to be able to go on this trek. So it did feel a little bit more raw, a little bit more of an adventure than the traditional classic. Still had the same vibe to it, so you're still bumping into other people on the trail, but there were definitely less of us, and it felt a little bit more wild, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Just we've talked about it before, but just 6 days with no phone signal, none of the distractions of modern life. You really immerse yourself in the environment and get to know the people that you're trekking with really well too.
You've got no option.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got no option. You're with them unless you decide to forge ahead as a true trailblazer. You pick your starting team, and that's you for 6 days, which is a really nice thing. You know, we were really fortunate that we had a really good group of people with us. Yeah. And thanks to Fjallraven UK for inviting us out to take part in this as well. We should say that this was a very fun trip, and we're incredibly grateful for that. But just the group of people that we've met, it was a great time.
Yeah, you know, a real laugh. What are we kicking off with, Ben? Should we go through some clothing first before we
should
start?
Probably go with our clothing. A little pile of clothing here. I don't have my socks and underwear because I didn't think you really needed to see that. But for most of the trail, I was wearing the same outfit because it was, well, you're on the trail, you don't want to carry too much. We'll also get into our pack weights a little bit because my pack certainly was heavier than I would have liked, but we'll run through as to some of the reasons why that was the case, because we both had quite heavy packs and we certainly could have gone lighter. Yeah. But I don't think it really detracted from the experience too much. But my clothing setup for what I was wearing was pretty straightforward. So just a logo cap that is incredibly crusty because it was on my head for the entire time. So a few salt stains on there. There's a lot of wax in this as well because I was wearing it out in the rain, so I pre-waxed this quite heavily. I won't go into just how I waxed it because it's probably not the recommended way. There might have been an open flame involved. A few little burn marks on the hat. Yeah, it's a little singed in places. But this was absolutely welded to my head. Didn't come off in the slightest. I was a little bit scared about what my hat hair looked like at the end of it. Then I had, on my top half, the Abisko wool sun hoodie. So this acted as both a base layer, because it's merino wool, so it was on for 4 of the days, and then I had a short sleeve tee in the kit here, also merino wool that I was wearing for the other part. but it acted both as a base layer and as sun protection. Because whilst it was raining quite a lot, we did also have some patches of pretty warm, nice sunshine, and being quite fair of skin, a sun hoodie up over the top of the hat and long sleeves really helped with coverage. So I came away without any sunburn. I did also have some sun protection, which is also in the top of the pack here, which we'll go into.
A little bit of a sneak peek there actually, isn't it, Ben, for that particular one?
Yeah, I think that one is now launched. It's now out in the market because that was an autumn-winter 2.5 product. So when we went out, we did have a few sneaky bits of products that were launching this season. Some more of them kind of hanging around a little bit, not this guy, but again, we'll explain him a little bit later. But we also had a lot of our own kit that was Fjallraven from the last few seasons because we wanted to make sure we did this with the clothing for the environment that it was designed for, and Fjall does that really well. And that takes me on to trousers. So I had one pair of Kebs. So these were my only legwear option apart from a pair of shorts that also acted as my swim shorts. But this set of Kebs have been thoroughly heavily waxed. Like, these have been washed since, and there's still an awful lot of wax in these just to help with some weather protection. And the Kebs were phenomenal. And I think you ended up in a set of Kebs as well, right?
I did, yeah. So I've got my Kebs here, and you know, just be what you say, really. They're phenomenal trousers. Just super comfortable as well, given there's a fair amount of G1000 in there, but you got stretch panels in all the right places, and just you know, we lived in them. Lots of people did on the trail, and they're thoroughly recommended. And you know, there were some warm days, and there were some days that were warm but also really wet. So these under some waterproof trousers with the vents open were pretty comfortable too. Yeah, they're just a trouser that works for the environment that we were in. Can't recommend the Kebs enough. You've got something else there that I didn't bring, which was your socks. Yeah, so I actually do have my socks to show people here. I will point out these are actually a new pair because they're not 100% merino, they did get a little bit pungent on the trail. But so I actually went for a 2-sock option. So I decided to try some Injinji liners. So look pretty strange. They are basically gloves for your feet. But I was obviously concerned about blisters, and I'd heard from some colleagues that a good option was to wear some Injinji liners where you have your toes obviously separate, and then underneath a pair of Darn Tough socks. So I suppose my kind of concerns there were, it's going to feel a bit bulky, am I going to get too warm? That wasn't the case with that at all. So the feet stayed right temperature, and the bottom line is I didn't get any blisters, not a single blister. Partly to do with the shoes we chose, which we'll come to in a minute. But yeah, I just really recommend this setup. So pair of really thin liners with the individual toes, underneath some merino Darn Tough socks, was absolutely perfect. They absorbed. I think the reason they did smell a bit was because obviously individual toes, you're absorbing all that moisture. Sure. But there's no friction, there's no rubbing between your toes, and then you've just got that extra layer of cushioning from the Darn Toughs as well. So I took 2 pairs of liners with me, and I took 3 pairs of Darn Tough socks. I wore 2 of these in the end. So yeah, that was my sock setup, and it worked really well.
Yeah, so my sock setup was a little more streamlined, so I just used pairs of Darn Tough's boot cushion socks. So I had 3 pairs total, the pair I left in and 2 spare pairs. Normally I would have only taken 1 spare pair, but given the weather forecast and it was looking a little bit wet, I wanted to ensure I had a guaranteed dry pair, just in case the worst happened. If my footwear let in any water, I stepped in any deep puddles. It's just a reassuring thing to have another dry pair of socks. But no issues, no blisters, and that brings us nicely onto our footwear, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So both had the same boots. Yours in black, mine in green, so we went to matchy. Yeah, so I suppose so they're both the Ultra Olympus 6 mid, so the hiking boot version of they do a low version as well. Gore-Tex shoe, classic Ultra features in terms of being pretty high stack, 0 drop. And I suppose the only difference really between these are that you've had yours quite a long time, Ben, and you've worn them a lot already. Yeah,
so mine are coming up to a year old. So I've used them extensively on trail and just throughout my general outdoor life. These have been the boots that I've been wearing for pretty much the last 12 months. and I was still confident in taking them on the Classic, and they didn't let me down. My feet stayed dry in them, apart from on the day where it was absolutely horrendous rain and we had a river crossing. I did get a bit of water ingress then. Apart from that, from external sources, these still stayed dry, super comfy, super supportive, really nice for that kind of trail, even considering we were carrying some quite heavy loads, because that was a concern initially, that with this stack, they may have been a little less stable. But with Ultra, with their original foot shape, they just worked really well. So I've got no complaints, and seemed to pay off for you as well, considering they were pretty new.
Yeah, so this is definitely bad practice. This is a case of do as Ben says, not as I do. These came to me fairly late, so these were pretty much fresh out of the box when I wore them, which, as we all know, is not a good thing to do. I felt fairly confident they'd be okay because I've worn Ultras before. They're fairly soft, and I'm quite used to the zero drop nature of them as well. But yeah, obviously the recommendation is to wear your boots in, especially if they're stiffer and leather as well.
Yeah, where possible, we'd always recommend it. But if you're confident with the footwear, and especially with someone like Ultra, straight out of the box performance, because it was a similar story with the Olympus 275s that you used recently.
Yep.
You know, you've had no issues with those in using them, and the first time you used them was pretty much on camera when we went for a run, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I had some confidence there, and sure enough, they didn't let me down at all. As I mentioned, I'm pretty sure my zero blister result from the trip was largely down to these. Similar story, super dry feet. The only time they got wet was on that river crossing, where I think they just sort of splashed over the back there a little bit. But even then, you know, just really comfortable, and yeah, I mean, I couldn't recommend them more really. And actually really grippy too, especially on the dry, so on dry rock, just so solid. But then there was some pretty wet boardwalks as well, where where you know, just there was no slipping. There was one fall, which we'll come on to a little bit later.
Well, we both had one fall, neither of which was on camera, so did it really happen? You know, we're holding our hands up here to talk about them, but yeah, we'll get a little bit stuck into those because that might be a little bit more relevant for me more than Ralph, because I did have a little bit of a calamity. But we can get stuck into that.
My fault was pure stupidity. It was just first day, in awe of the environment, looking around at the mountains and not at the trail, and just caught my toe and fell over in front of a lot of people, and hadn't got used to the weight of my pack, so found like I couldn't get back up again. I just looked like somebody who just couldn't do a push-up, basically, floundering on the floor. But yeah, you do it once and you learn. So,
yeah, it didn't happen again for the rest of the trail for you.
And certainly not the fault of the shoe.
No, not at all. No, and mine also wasn't the fault of the shoe. That was, again, me not paying attention in some very wet and muddy conditions. And I just had a little wipeout, but may have slightly written off a pair of waterproof trousers that were fixable on trail. So certainly not the end of the world, but something to pay attention to, and a reason to carry a repair kit with you, which is something that is in this pack. So,
excellent.
Talking of packs, we might as well talk about your pack.
Yeah. So this, I think maybe surprisingly, perhaps from the angle of the camera there, is it's actually a 72 litre pack. So this is Fjallraven's Keb 72. So it's a bit of a stalwart in their pack range. It's been around for quite a long time. And I loved it, I have to say. Although it was 72 litres, it's super slimline. A lot of that volume is, if you were to sort of stand, see the profile of somebody, it kind of comes out the back quite a lot. You've got a really big front pocket here. But yeah, as I said, it was slimline. I didn't feel the size it was. It's super waterproof. Obviously, I waxed the G1000 elements at the front, but the Berg shell pieces at the side here, you know, we obviously wore up rain covers on our packs when it was really heavy. There was a fair amount of time we were in the rain when I didn't put the rain cover on, and yeah, everything stayed in there bone dry, even though everything was in dry bags. So yeah, and in terms of comfort, obviously, you know, there's a lot of adjustability in there. They've got the birch stays and all of that good stuff. So yeah, after some time spent making sure it fitted properly, it was really comfortable, given that it was heavy as well. So it's a heavy bag, and then with everything the day before we set off, stripping all kinds of things out, trying to say, do I really need this? Do I really need that? Do I need these extra pair of pants? Trying to just really get it down as low as possible. The reality is, from my point of view, when I got just the bare essentials, I was still coming in at just shy of 20K. 20 kilograms. So,
and that's including food, right?
That's including food, yeah, quite a lot of food, obviously for the trail, but also a fair amount of snacks and things that we took along as well. So yeah, a heavy pack, but it didn't feel that heavy, and could easily walk the trek with it. You know, bit discomfort at the end of the day, but yeah, I couldn't fault it. Exactly, I earned those multiple packs of jelly babies.
Yes.
So that's the pack that I took with me. What have you got there, Ben?
So I took a slightly different pack. I've got the Cuppa 65. So this is the newer generation of the Cuppa that came out, I believe, last year. So they updated it to include the side pods instead of a slightly different pocket system on them, and made a few other changes. This pack, being a 65 litre, is a little bit smaller than Ralph's technically, but the way that it's packed out with these side pods, it's a little bit stouter, it's a little bit wider. And honestly, this pack, I got on okay with. It wouldn't have been my first choice for something to take on the trail. I personally prefer a pack that's a little bit more streamlined, that doesn't have loads of buckles and adjustments and straps and toggles. Like, they all serve a function on this pack, right? And I did use most of them, but when it comes to quickly accessing the pack, sometimes when I was undoing toggles and then another zip, and then I've got to undo another toggle here, it did start to grate on me a little bit, but that's a personal preference thing. A lot of people have a lot of love for this pack, and honestly, it was very comfortable. Once it was fully adjusted, you did have to play around with it a little bit because of the weight in this pack. So, spoiler alert, my pack was a little bit heavier than Ralph's. My pack all in, so including water, food, everything. So when I was ready to set off on the trail on the first day, came in about 24.5 kilos. And there is good reason for that, because I made some right weight choices. I was also carrying camera gear, batteries. So if I didn't have the camera, spare batteries and a few other essentials for some of the recording that we did while we were away, my pack would have been a very similar weight to Ralph's, if not a little bit lighter. And that's also including some luxuries that Ralph didn't have as well. So in terms of sleeping mat and tent setups, which we'll go into when we delve a little bit further into the pack. But overall, this pack was comfortable, it worked. Would I like something that was maybe a little bit lighter, a little bit more streamlined? If I was to do it again with a Fjall pack, I would probably more towards a Keb 72 or a Keb 52 if I could get away with it. But there are also some packs on the trail that are coming soon that are a little bit more exciting, that are a little bit lighter weight. We can't say too much about them because they haven't been officially released yet, because that was the other thing that the Campfire Academy was being used for. There were a lot of people from Fjallraven and the Phoenix group at large that were there testing some newer season kit. So we got quite excited on trail to be able to see a few funky new things out on the trail, which was always nice to see a little bit of innovation coming forward, to see what's coming next. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's some cool stuff coming, and I think you know, Fjallraven have obviously developed a great reputation for solid, burly, last a lifetime gear, which is great, and there's obviously a real market for that still. But there's a growing market of people who want lighter, faster stuff, and that is a call that Fjallraven are answering. Yeah, and I'm excited to see where that goes. Yeah, brilliant. Should we dig in? Yeah, let's get stuck in. Let me see what's at the top here. So you're going to start in a slightly different place to me. I'm going to do the external of my pack before going too far into the pack. Okay, I was going to leave my lid till the end. And then it falls down like that, so I probably shouldn't have done that. There we go. So at the top here, I guess I can talk about sort of these two bits in conjunction. So this was my cooking setup. So this is the MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe. So this is something that we both had the equivalent kit of. If we want to save a little bit of weight, we could have shared a stove. But the practicalities of that, when we're in different tents and some of the camp spots we weren't camping next to each other, it just made more sense for us to have our own stove setup. So yes, a little bit more weight, but the luxury of that was a really nice thing. So my stove setup is going to look pretty similar because I've also got a Pocket Rocket Deluxe.
So that's the stove itself. And then what we took with us, and we both did the same thing here, was we took one of the MSR titanium 900 ml pots.
So it's the Titan kettle that we both have. So 900 ml was just a perfect size because we were using 230 gram canisters. Because we were on trail for a little bit longer, if you were carrying 100 gram canisters, you would have got through a couple of them. From a waste point of view and a size point of view, 230s made sense. And a 230 nestles nicely inside of the Titan 900. So it meant that things were a little bit more compact. You have more than enough boiling capacity for a coffee and your breakfast or your main meal in one pot. And being titanium, it's super lightweight.
Yeah, exactly. So I had, we both had that, but then I also took the mug equivalent as well. So this is the titanium 450 ml from MSR with the little lip saver on there too, and that's just what I drank my coffee and tea out of.
So my setup was slightly more compact than that because this also has my mug attached to the top lid here. So if I take the lid off, you might be able to see that it doesn't look quite the same as Ralph's. So I've used a Sea to Summit X mug, and the X mug is a collapsible mug from Sea to Summit, but it just so happens to be exactly the right diameter to sit in the top of the lid here. It also sits on the underside of a gas canister, so it's just a really compact mug that's a really nice size that sits there. And it's just a really compact setup. I find that really quite satisfying. So when that's sat there,
I remember the joy in your face when you realised that. That fitted in there so neatly.
It's very very simple things. I'm a simple man, Ralph. Like when it sits there and it's just so compact, it's really hard to forget, and it just is a really nice little thing. Otherwise, my setup was pretty much exactly the same. So just a little pot scrubber in there. I've got a fire starter and a little microfiber cloth, and then I've got the stove in here as well. But stove setups, simple, efficient, just kind of worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I took a little cloth too. I took a scrubber and some from Sea to Summit and their little thing of wilderness wash as well. And I didn't use it once. I lent it to someone to use, but because we were eating out of obviously real term out packets there, we just rinsed them out, and I just didn't really need to take that, to be honest. So that was something that I didn't need. So that was the cooking. And then what I've also pulled out of my pack here is my coffee setup. So both like coffee, don't we, Ben?
We certainly do.
Pretty important for the morning. So I took a GSI pour over set, which comes with a grinder. So I also took beans, which were in here in this little Yeti container. So I measured out just enough beans that I needed for the trip, and then it worked with this system here. So comes with this neat little grinder here, just like any other kind of ceramic burr grinder. So I was grinding my beans every morning in mixed weather conditions, it warms you twice. So that's the grinder there, and then this is the pour over set here. So just pop that on your mug. Something that's not clear with this particular one actually is that it comes with the reusable filter in the set. That wasn't very obvious actually on the packaging. So I bought a separate one that I didn't need. So if anyone's ever looking at this, you don't actually need to buy this separately. It does come with one. You pop your grinds in there. Oops, some in there still. and then pour it over, and it made a very nice cup of coffee. Not the best cup of coffee I've ever had, but it made a perfectly good one for the trail, and it was freshly ground beans. So really good, really compact and lightweight. I'm glad I took it.
Yeah, so my coffee setup initially was going to be even lighter weight and a little bit experimental, so I actually didn't end up taking it. What I'd initially planned on taking was no normal coffee. So this is a coffee paste. So it's
brush your teeth with it
if you really want to, if you need that boost in the morning. So it's a little bit of a halfway house between instant coffee and ground coffee. The theory being is that you put some of this into a mug, and then pour boiling water over it, and you get a good quality cup of coffee. In practice, when I tried this, it was okay, but what was clear to me was that I was going to need to probably get another tube of this in order to have coffee that felt strong enough for me to drink, because I drink my coffee quite strong. So at the last minute, I panicked, backed out of using this stuff, and then bought some freshly ground beans from a local coffee shop, some really good quality coffee, and just got a really lightweight sea to summit pour over. So my pour over setup, considerably smaller than Ralph's, a little bit lighter, perfect for making just 1 cup of coffee, sits on my X mug really nicely, and then when it's done, it packs away really quite small. So that's literally it, reusable filter, everything in there, sits on top, and then my Sea to Summit Sport, ultralight spork as well, all sits in there. So
Sure that's yours, Ben?
definitely.
I had the same one, which I lost, but I lost it at a hut, which had one of the little sort of help yourself to any of these little freebies baskets, where they had a Sea to Summit spoon, exactly the same, just not a spork. So one's man's loss is another man's.
I was hoping that you were going to have to whittle something along the way, or.
And actually, Ben found that, so that was a really good find. Thank you, Ben.
No worries. But yeah, coffee is very important when you're out on the trail, because the morning ritual is really nice to wake up to. And it's just something that is a nice go of things, so that you can sit there. It's a simple pleasure, and it's something that I'd recommend taking that is potentially a little bit heavier. So my coffee setup, the pour over was a little bit lighter than Ralph's setup, and obviously he took a grinder and beans and other things that took up a little bit more space. That was definitely more of a luxury for you.
Yeah,
but sure. I still had a 200 gram bag of coffee and my setup there, and I still had really nice coffee. So I'd recommend doing that as an upgrade over instant, or if you're on a slightly shorter trip, you can give something like No Normal a go, and let us know your feedback on something like this.
Cool. So that's coffee and cooking systems. What I have next in my bag is an empty dry bag. This was full with, I think it was about 2 kilos of snacks. This is what I kept all my goodies in, basically. So trail mix, jelly babies, biltong, just little treats basically to kind of have during the day. So I basically kept all my food in there, and then for the day I just took out what I wanted and I put it in the hip belt of the pack as well. So I just had quick access to it. So so that was my snack bag, my food bag there.
Yeah, mine was very similar as well. I've got 2 empty bags in there, one for snacks, so I had about 2 kilos of a whole mix of things, and then all of the dehydrated meals that were repackaged to make them a little bit smaller as well. So they're hiding somewhere in that pack, but obviously we didn't bring more food back for the sake of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then I've just got a few more dry bags here. This just had my nightwear in, my pajamas, long johns, a merino top, just for sleeping in. And a buff, actually, which, because I suppose one thing was, because it was so light there, obviously being in the Arctic Circle, didn't get dark until really late, and that actually kind of didn't help with getting to sleep. So I actually just wore a buff around my eyes, which helped me nod off. This was what I had my other clothes in. I didn't go into any real detail apart from the fact that I did take an extra pair of shorts with me, just a pair of hiking shorts, which I was really glad of on the first and last day, just because, as I said, we did have a couple of warmer ones, so they were really comfortable too. Yeah, and then into the sleep systems, but we'll come on to that in a minute.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll give a quick rundown. So before I delve into the inside of my pack, where I've got some of the similar stuff that Ralph's mentioned there, I'm going to go over the outside, because I've got 4 or 5 pockets on the outside of this guy that mean that my pack organisation was a little bit different to yours. So on this front pocket here, apart from my coffee and stove kit, so there was also the bag of coffee in here for quick access for snacks and stop breaks. I've also got my waterproof shell trousers, which we will go into a little bit later when we talk about our waterproofing, because I think that's a topic that we should cover together.
Yep.
The lid mostly contains my quick access needs for health and safety and UV and bug protection. So inside here I've got sunscreen, bug spray, my first aid kit, I've got a knife in there, I've got a repair kit, head torch is in here, and then sunglasses, mosquito net. Would recommend taking a mosquito net. They were a little bit relentless.
Scars are just about healing.
Yeah, we got absolutely peppered with them, and they cared not for insect repellent for the most part. Once they got their teeth stuck into you, that was kind of it. And then there's also the rain cover on the underside of the lid in here, and some spare batteries for the head torch. So all just quick grab essentials that I would need to grab potentially out on the trail, or just for general quick access. So that's where I really use the lid. And then in the 2 side pods, I have other quick access things that I'll need during the day. During the day, I didn't really want to enter my pack at all unless I absolutely had to. So apart from grabbing maybe a full meal if we weren't just going to be snacking for lunch, that was the only reason I'd go into the main body of the pack. Otherwise, everything else was going to be quick grab on the external. So in here, I've got my down jacket, which was a Fjallraven Expedition pack down jacket. Hat and gloves in here just for quick grab. I did end up using the gloves one day because the weather was really driving rain and it was quite windy, so it was quite cold. So did use those, always recommend taking them. And then this is my camera quick access bag. So I didn't need the big power banks and things which are secured in the main body of the pack. So this little kit here, inside one of the Exped Versa dry bags, I've then got one of the little Exped padded cases. So this little case just adds a little bit of protection to the things inside. So in here, I did carry the microphones, which we're now using here. So they're not in here, but I've got spare memory cards, spare camera batteries, some lens wipes, and some other bits that I might need to swap out for the camera. That camera in particular, which was the one that was clipped onto the outside of my pack. So this little kit here was quite useful just for a quick grab, so I had it on the outside of my pack to be nice and easy. The other side then contains my water filtration, which, I'll be honest, I didn't use. The water over there, you should always take a water filter with you, and if you feel you need to use it, absolutely use it. But I ended up using, so I've got the rest of the filter in here somewhere. It's a Platypus quick draw filter. But I ended up just using the dirty water bag just to collect water with, same with the Platypus soft bottle as well, along with my Nalgene bottle, so I had plenty of ability to drink water. Sit pad, so I didn't take a chair, that was one luxury I decided to go against, but just a foam sit pad was really nice just for sitting when we were taking a lunch break or kneeling down in the tent as well. So that was quite a nice little grab. The trash bag, and then there's also my toilet kit in here as well. So got a little trowel and the rest of my toilet kit, so for quick grabs if I needed to. So everything in those pockets, super easy and convenient to grab when I need to, so I'm not faffing around opening my pack, taking it off and throwing it down, having to fully unzip it. Especially when the rain cover was on, it was easy just to grab in these side pods. So a little bit of pack admin there. I do like these side pods, but they do also interfere with using the pockets lower down for sort of bulkier items. Getting a Nalgene bottle in and out of them was a little bit tougher, just because the pods sit on top. Once they're full, they sit on top of the bottle, so it's a little bit harder to get it out. But the versatility of these pockets is quite a useful thing.
You skimmed over your toilet setup a bit there, Ben.
I did, because there is one other luxury in there. So I decided to, I don't know whether treat myself is the right word.
I think it is.
So having previously gone out on the trail and dug plenty of cat holes along the way, there are certain trail ethics that you should follow when you're out and about. So you shouldn't leave any human waste, any toilet paper exposed. You certainly shouldn't use any baby wipes or anything like that that you then bury. And best practice, ideally, if you can't carry it back out in a trash bag, and ideally if you're carrying any toilet paper or anything like that, you want another sealable bag inside that. But best practice is to burn your toilet paper. So in order to cut down on the need to do that, I actually treated myself to a little trail bidet. So this fits onto, in this case a soft flask, but it'll fit onto sort of a standard smart water bottle or something like that, which is what this was designed for. And it just helps keep you clean with the need to use less toilet paper. And it was a nice little trail luxury. Will I admit that it was quite cold using some glacial runoff water to to clean up? Yes, but it was quite refreshing. So
I bet.
It was quite a nice little addition. But I mean, most of the time we ended up being fortunate that we had access to long drop toilets at some of the STF stations. So we weren't completely devoid of any luxury. We weren't off digging holes on the daily if it was required. Yeah. So that was quite a nice luxury that I remember from last time. That was also good to have there again. Cool. I think that's about it from the outside of my pack, apart from my Nalgene bottle. I've then got my shell on the outside of the pack down here, and then I've got my Black Diamond walking poles as well. Yeah. Yours are obviously hanging up here as part of our display. Yeah. So yeah, that's my Nalgene bottle. That's your Grail water filter, which was your water system.
Yeah. So I took obviously when you do these kind of trips, there's a sort of mandatory kit list and a recommended kit list as well. So water filter was one of the mandatory pieces, and so was a spare water bottle. The spare water bottle was something that I cut when I was trying to save weight, because the Grail there is a water bottle and filter all built into one. So yeah, I did filter my water because that was basically how that water bottle works as a bottle. Not that I needed to, but it was really good. There was one occasion where we crossed a river that wasn't clear. It was quite silty, so I thought it would be a good test of the filter, and it came out crystal clear. So we're going to link to a collection of all of these products, so you can check out how all of this works and look at it in more detail. But yeah, water bottle and filter all in one, fantastic, love it.
Yeah, as an all-in-one solution, I think the Grail works really well because it is everything. And if you compare it to an Nalgene, yes, it is a bit bulkier, it is heavier, but that's also your filter, that's everything all in one. It's really hard to lose, and you get guaranteed filtered water. So the Grail, I think, is a good shout if you aren't going to be taking something like a Nalgene and then a separate filter.
Yeah, and you know what it filters out is incredible, really, in terms of pathogens and all of those bits and pieces. It will provide you with clear drinkable water pretty much anywhere. Okay, good. So I might just go on the I will go on the outside here, because we'll come to waterproofs in a minute. But in the front here, I just kept my toiletry bag here. So just simple deodorant, any medication, that kind of thing, toothbrush, toothpaste. That was kept in there. So your first aid kit was one that you'd put together yourself. Mine was just an off-the-shelf Life Systems first aid kit that we sell here. Thankfully, I didn't need to use it once. It was used on one occasion for somebody who just wanted some blister pads from it and some of the tape and the scissors. But obviously, it's an essential thing to take. So that was what I went for. I also took some gloves, so I took these really lightweight waterproof gloves from the Rona. Similarly, I wore them on that one day that you mentioned, and they kept my hands bone dry, and in that wind at the same time, really warm as well. So I didn't think I'd need them, especially on the first day when it was sunny, but I was really glad I took them for that one day.
Yeah, and that's the real key thing with a trail like the trail that we were on for the Fjallraven Classic, is that because of where we were north of the Arctic Circle, the weather conditions can be so changeable. Like when we set off, I was wishing I'd set off in shorts. It was really sunny. I was very concerned about the UV exposure, so I was wearing that sun hoodie. But the weather was glorious. And then, a few days later, we were full head to toe Gore-Tex with extra layers on underneath because of the wind chill, and it was raining sideways. So you never really know what you're expecting, so you have to pack for every eventuality. Yes, you could probably have cut a little bit of weight and got away with a little bit less, but if the weather had turned even more, like in previous years on the Classic, they've had snow. So you never really know what you're going to get, despite it being summer within the Arctic Circle. That can mean a lot of things.
Yeah, 4 seasons.
Absolutely.
Cool. So then I also have the same little Exped padded case here, which I just use for spare lens for the camera. Then on the outside of my pack, I basically just have my water bottle, and I did use it just to store my walking poles if I ever wasn't using them, but I use them for most of the trek, to be honest with you.
Cool. Should we talk about waterproofs?
Let's talk
while
about
we're in the mode?
waterproofs. Yeah, absolutely. So these are my waterproof trousers that I took. Still bearing the mud. So really pleased with these. So these are some Gore-Tex Tierra waterproof trousers. A really good buy actually, because they are not as expensive as some of the competitors out there. Super breathable, kept me bone dry, really waterproof, pack up nice and small. So these were worn a lot more than I thought I was going to be wearing waterproof trousers, and yeah, they did the job really, really well.
Yeah, so mine are actually a loaner pair, which makes what I'm about to show you a little bit more awkward. So I was fortunate enough to end up in a set of Fjallraven's new Keb Gore-Tex waterproof trousers. So these have, as of the time of recording this, just been released. So Keb Gore-Tex trousers, still showing the use there. They worked really well. They were super waterproof, breathable. The external pocket here was a nice little additional feature. Really like the trousers, they fit really well. I did, unfortunately, come a little bit of a cropper when it was really wet and muddy, and ended up landing in perfect conditions to tear a hole in the knee. So something like that can happen on the trail. It happened to me because my foot just wiped out from underneath me on a very wet section of trail. I just slipped down and just clipped a rock at just the right angle to rip these. No damage to my knee, no damage to the Kebs underneath. The Keb Gore-Tex just took the brunt of it.
So you should have seen the rock there, right?
Oh yeah, the rock was, yeah, it was dust. So this is an unfortunate thing that can happen out on the trail, and that's why we would always recommend taking a repair kit. So I do have a repair kit in my kit here. I did perform an initial quick trail repair just to keep going with some tenacious tape, which I've now taken off, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to show you at another time how to repair a pair of trousers like this properly, because something like that can happen, accidents happen. I do now need to explain to our friends at Fjallraven why their trousers have a speed hole in them, which we'll get to at some point, but these trousers performed exactly as they should. They worked really well, and it was my own fault as to the reason why they have a hole in them. It's no fault of the trousers. But while we're on the subject of waterproofs and Fjallraven with Gore-Tex,
Tell us what you got here, Ben.
so this isn't the first time that Fjallraven have partnered with Gore-Tex. This is a little bit of a relic that we're not going to focus on too much here, but this is from their first round with Gore-Tex before they decided to move away from them for their use of PFAs. And now that Gore-Tex have introduced their new EPE membrane, Fjallraven felt it was time to circle back round to them and release a new collection. So they released both Keb and Bergtagen. So Bergtagen is something that me and you both ended up wearing, which we were fortunate enough to have their Bergtagen Gore-Tex Pro shells, which we were really grateful for because it ended up being quite wet.
Yeah. I'm sure at some point, if you haven't already, we'll cut to some footage of just how rainy it was. But yeah, it was a wet trip for sure. And so, as I mentioned, the waterproof trousers got used a lot more than I thought. But so did these jackets. And yeah, I mean, they performed exceptionally well. Obviously, you know, you've got your expected Fjallraven quality and design, you know, thoughtful design there, combined with Gore-Tex Pro. So what that meant in reality for us was that we kept completely dry in some pretty torrential conditions, but also perfectly comfortable as well, given the correct layering underneath. You know, waterproof, but also breathing really well, making use of the vents and everything there too. But yeah, it was a fantastic jacket to have in exactly the conditions that it's designed to be worn in.
Yeah, designed for those conditions, but also designed for more. So with the Bergtagen range, which is the range that we focused on here more at Trekitt, rather than the Keb range, it is a little bit more of a mountaineering focus. So we put it to the test in terms of its overall weatherproofing, but from a durability point of view and from a discipline point of view, they can also be used with climbing harnesses. So they're harness compatible, so you can notice the Napoleon pockets on Ralph's jacket, which is up on the mannequin there. and it's also got a helmet compatible hood. So the hoods are quite big, something to bear in mind. They do cinch down to be head compatible, but they are designed around helmet compatibility. You also have extra venting. And for me, from a fit perspective, because they are a little bit longer in the body, it was perfect. So I normally struggle with body length on certain waterproof shells, particularly those that are cut more for climbing. Some of those can tend to be a little bit shorter in the body for me. This, I think I get on really well with. So you'll see more about the Bergtagen shells coming from us soon, but it's fair to say I think we're both pretty impressed with them.
Okay, so I think that's covered off waterproofs. I think if I just have a little look in here now, I'm just going to pull out this bag here. So this is how I kept all my sleep gear dry. So a little pillow there from Sea to Summit, and then the sleeping bag. I think that's what's next. Oh, so I also had the Fjallraven pack down down jacket as well,
yep.
which again was really useful in the evenings. It did get pretty cold. So the sleeping mat I took, so I was going to take the same one that you took then, which you'll come to, but because I had a one-man tent, quite simply it didn't fit. So instead I took a regular Rab Ionosphere 5.5, which is basically the same as the one
like that
up there, which was perfectly comfortable, kept me really warm, and yeah, it was. I have no faults at all on that. It was really good, and compared to the one you're going to talk to, slightly more compact as well, and a little bit lighter.
My sleep setup is split between the upper and lower pockets, so you've got a separate bottom section here. So there might be a little bit of pulling stuff out here, which I can just throw in quickly. So I had my camp shoes, which were just a set of Crocs. So they're super lightweight. Unfortunately for me, I have massive feet, so they are enormous. So I've had to strap them together just to try and get them more compact. But these in the evenings, for a little bit of relief from your boots, gives your boots a chance to dry out and air out a little bit. A set of camp shoes is a worthy upgrade.
I mean, the good thing about your giant Crocs is that they help me with the river crossing. So,
yes, yeah, they could comfortably float you across quite easily. Cool. So the rest of my pack in here. So mine's organised a little bit differently to Ralph's. So I've got a few more loose things in here. So another Sea to Summit pillow and a tiny Sea to Summit Airlight towel as well. This is actually the large size,
and it isn't.
And it isn't, but it was functional for what I needed to. I was still able to go for swims on the trail with it and to use it to dry out the inside of my tent if there was a bit of condensation or some moisture on the inside. I wiped down my pack with that. So that was always useful to have, quick to grab. My sleeping bag, which is actually a really old Rab Neutrino Endurance 400 bag. So this is one of my first purchases when I started working at Trekitt around 8 years ago. And it's still going strong because I've looked after it. It still works really well. We do still stock the newer version of this, so that will be the one that's linked in our kit rundown of this. But essentially it's quite similar to this.
Still going strong?
Still going strong, no issues with it at all. It's been washed a few times, and it's the sleeping bag I take on pretty much every adventure.
Yep.
Power banks, batteries inside a little Life Venture X-Pack case, both for a little bit of durability and water resistance. That adds quite a bit of weight to my setup. So that was running along the center of the pack, just sitting sort of along my spine, so it wasn't trying to swap the pack out either way. My little wash kit here with all the little essentials in, just in a little dry bag there, so it's nice and quick to grab. Those are the ones that would have had food in them, so I don't need to worry about that. And then my spare clothes in here. So I had, similarly to Ralph, my pajamas, which were a set of Bergtagen thin wool top and bottom, my spare socks, a pair of Abisko trekking shorts, and a spare t-shirt. So quite minimal on the packing. If I was being really brutal, I probably could have dropped the spare t-shirt and a pair of socks, maybe even the shorts to go really light with it, but swapping into a fresh pair of socks and a fresh t-shirt a few days into the trail was really nice.
Yeah.
Really welcome. And then we've got my tent poles, which live separate to the rest of the tent further down. Unfortunately, I can now access the fun part. So this is my sleeping mat. So the sleeping mat that I went for is a little bit bulkier, and that's twofold, both because I need a long mat. So it is bulkier just because it needs extra length. But this is the Thermarest Neo Air. And the Neo Air was definitely a luxury item for me because it is quite heavy. It's getting on for twice the weight of my other sleeping pad that I tend to regularly use, but it's also nearly 12 centimeters thick. So it was really luxury at the end of the day to be able to sleep on something like this. It was really comfortable, inflated really easily, but as Ralph alluded to, he was also going to take one of these. Unfortunately, with the Abisko Light 1, which was the tent that Ralph took, it really doesn't fit in it because it's too wide, and the length of the tent is fine, but the mat is too wide to fit in it comfortably.
So it's 66 centimeters, and the toe end of the Abisko Light 1 is about 55. So I tried it in the garden, which is probably a good thing to recommend. And I sent you a little video just saying, I don't think it's. I wish this would work, but I don't think it's going to, because it was basically just pushing against the inner, and given the weather we had, that would have been a soggy situation.
That would have been an uncomfortable time. Yeah, so twofold, both because of the long wide mat that I was using, the fact that it also is a little bit thicker, so it pushes me further up. I used a two-person tent for this, which was a really nice luxury. Again, it also meant that was also heavier, which ties into my overall pack weight being heavier than Ralph's, because with that mat and with the tent, I think I was probably getting on for about 1 kilo heavier than you with your comparable setup with your tent and sleeping mat. But really glad of that choice because I was really comfy. I had extra space in order to do a little bit of tent admin for playing around with the camera kit at the end of the day, more space for drying my kit out, and I could afford to be a little bit messier because I could just open the pack up and plonk stuff down. Whereas you, with your tent, you didn't have quite as much admin space.
Not really. A little, I would say, given it's a one-man tent, it's a pretty spacious one-man tent, and given my 5'8.5" stature, I did have a little bit of space at the both at the top and the bottom as well, where I could kind of shove things. But yeah, I was certainly lacking that that ability to sort of lay things out. Yeah,
and that was really the difference that I noticed was with so my tent was the Fjallraven Abisko Freelift 2, which is a great tent, is very comfortable, but I am based on a mat, I am the length of the inner of the tent. So I wouldn't have had space for my pack at the end by my feet or anything like that. So having that extra person's width next to me was really useful from an admin point of view, because I like having my pack inside the tent with me if possible. So I did store it outside in the vestibule if I knew the weather was going to be better, just to have a little bit more space in the tent. But on one particular day, I did have a little bit of a flood in the vestibule area of my tent. So if I'd kept my pack in there, it would have been soggy, it would have been heavier, it would have been a little bit less comfortable. So bringing the pack inside with that extra space was well worth it.
Was that the night you and Connor pitched in a stream?
No, Connor was fine. So that night we ended up pitching on pre-established camp spots that other people had clearly camped on because they were flattened out, and people had made some temporary windbreaks with rocks because where we were sort of in a bit of a wind tunnel in the valley. But as it happened, all of the rainwater that was running off Connor's tent and off the ground that had been compacted down was essentially funneling down into the slightly lower terrace that I was on, and there was a bit of a shallow that it started to just creep towards me in, and by the time I'd packed up the tent, it was just encroaching underneath the ground sheet. So I was quite happy that I'd moved my pack to the other side, and then the rain did stop, so I was all right.
Yeah.
But that's an important note on picking camp spots. Even if it is a pre-established camp spot, you still might get into a little bit of trouble. And you were camped a little bit further down from us and had no issues on a slightly different patch of ground.
Yeah, that's right. But given the tent I had, the only option for storing my pack was in the vestibule. And there were certainly occasions where I mentioned the water repellency of this pack, and I was really glad of it then because yeah, it got pretty wet in the vestibule there. So yeah, that was a slight difference. In terms of, I'll just quickly mention the sleeping bag that I took. So I took the Sea to Summit Spark Pro, which is a fantastic bag. It was overkill really for what we needed, at least for most of the nights, because -9 is the lowest temperature there. So I did get pretty warm on the start of the week. But it's okay because the features in this are numerous and super useful. So loads of different zipping options to create vents in the right places, lower down, higher up, that kind of thing. You can do a couple of nights where I was able to unzip it completely and turn it into a quilt, which worked really well. So yeah, a very warm bag, probably too warm for that particular trip, but I could make it work because of its features. So that was really good. I think that draws an end to the sleep system. I mean, we've got one up on the wall there, but this is the tent that I use, the Abisko Light one, which was perfect for my needs, as we've said.
Yeah, and that's another difference there because that one is packed as it came from Fjall. I split mine out into the inner and the fly just to make them a little bit more compact, but it also helps me when I'm pitching because my tent was an inner pitch first. Did run into a few, I'm not going to say issues, but challenges with pitching an inner pitch first tent when it was really raining and really wet. So it's just about proper admin and management of your tent to try and keep it as dry as possible. So this tent doesn't officially have an outer pitch or an all-in-one pitch option, at least not easily. So there is a way that you can kind of do it, but it's a bit faffy. So streamlining your setup. So it's things like I have most of my pegs here in the peg bag. So when I got to camp, I would open the bottom of the pack and I'd be able to pull these items out rather than opening the main body here. I can open from the bottom. But with the inner, because you have to put the inner down first, it's things like I have 4 pegs in there to peg out the 4 corners of the inner straight away. It's things like packing the inner away so that I have the corner tabs ready to pull out. So I can grab these, pull it out, and then I can immediately peg down rather than just stuffing it in randomly and not knowing where it is. The same with the fly sheet as well. I have the appropriate corners that clip into the clips here at the top of the stuff sack. So when you're packing your tent away, pay attention to the way you're packing it away so it's more efficient for when you've then got to pitch it again. Especially with an in pitch first tent, that's a little bit more important. So it's something worth paying attention to.
Yeah, and that's a good example of from my point of view anyway, some of the information that was shared in the workshops before the trip, just bearing in mind little things like that just make the process easier when things are tough on the trail. Yeah,
that was the advantage of the Campfire Academy, was for people that are either a little bit less experienced or have not experienced this style of trail before. Like there were a lot of people on the Campfire Academy with us that had been in the outdoors an awful lot, but they hadn't necessarily trekked in this style, carrying all their food for multiple days. So things like learning to repack our food, to make it much smaller, little tips on pitching tents in terms of direction, and like packing pegs individually and things is a really useful skill. But that's also something that we shared on the trail with the people that we ended up trekking with. I think there was a lot of information sharing from anyone and everyone, not necessarily just about trekking and hiking, just general life advice as well was a pretty common theme throughout.
Certainly there were some cases where there was too much information shared.
On occasion there was probably a little bit too much sharing.
That stays in Sweden.
Yeah, sharing isn't always caring, but it's definitely staying in Sweden.
So I think we're almost done. I'll just go through my lids here. Just little bits and pieces really. Also on the inside here I just have my wallet and my passport. Just keep those safe. That was my bug spray. That is the most damage that came from my tumble during on the first day. I was very conscious of the fact that I had my camera on one of the straps here. So as I was falling, I rolled over to one side and my hip belt took the brunt of it, and the bug spray saved me from shattering my pelvis. And then in the top here, rain cover, which obviously comes with the pack, and we used that more than we thought we were going to. I just kept a buff in there, this very limited edition buff here. I took this that I didn't need. This was basically just a little it's a Soto blowtorch. Again, the mandatory kit was matches or a lighter, and given that we've got a built-in ignition on the stove there, that wasn't needed. This was my Sea to Summit trowel that, as you've alluded to, Ben, we kind of only needed to use a handful of times. given the amount of toilets that were around. And then last couple of bits, mosquito net, which we had to use quite a lot. Certainly helped to save our face, if nothing else. And then I just took a tiny little knife with me, which actually was really useful. The isotonic sachets I had were made out of the world's toughest plastic, and just a weakling, but I couldn't tear them open, so that was just to nip those open. And there's a spare torch in there, and that is everything I took with me to Sweden.
Yeah, I think I've covered off pretty much everything I've got. The only thing that I haven't, because it's sat here, was my Keb Classic fleece. So this was my extra layer, which I was wearing usually in the evenings. I wasn't generally trekking in this, which is why it was sat at the top of the pack here. So if we stopped for lunch or anything, it was just there as a nice easy grab. And I felt the need to represent, because this one is the UK version of the Keb Classic fleece. So I had to go over to Sweden and let them know that I'd done the UK one as well. Not that made any difference to most of them, because they had all of the patches, everything was stitched onto their packs and things. So at the end of completing the Classic, you do gain, if I remember which pocket it's in, you do gain a patch for completing it. So we also collected some other patches along the way. So I've got some of those in here as well that were part of the trail. But upon completing the Classic, you end up with a finisher's medal, a little pin badge, and a patch. And this patch is a little bit different to the one that you got.
Yep.
Because I have completed 2 Classics now. So each time you complete a Classic, so the Swedish Classic, for instance, I've completed that twice. So mine is now a green patch, and if I complete it a third time, I get a different color. If you get the opportunity to go and do it again, you will then get one of these, but your first one was black.
Correct, yeah, so it was a white background with the black embroidery on.
Yeah.
That was my first one.
So yeah, so upon completing it, the main thing, because then otherwise you wouldn't have proof that you'd done it, you end up with the patches there. But we also collected some patches along the way from the STF stations, which were along the trail. Some of them had accommodation, some of them were just little shops. But essentially you could collect these patches to then take with you on the trail, or to sew onto your pack, whatever you want to do with them, put them onto a blanket at the end. But it's just a nice little memento of our trek, along with the Abisko to Kebnekaise trekking patch as well.
I suppose the only other evidence that we did it then is on Strava as well, and I think that's thanks to the kind of the one bit of technology that we did take with us. So I took this Sunto Vertical, which battery is phenomenal, lasted the whole trip, and I was actually able to log from start to finish the whole route. So monitored all the essential stats. But from my point of view, I just wanted that nice big long journey on the Sunto app and on Strava too. But yeah, I was really glad to be wearing that on the route as well.
Yeah, similarly, I used my Phoenix 7X, did record the entirety of the route as well, just about squeaked in with battery life. I wanted to keep on some of the other features as well. If I turned off some of the heart rate monitoring and things, it would have lasted no issues at all. But because of that, I did actually charge it on the 4th day just to keep it topped up. But the battery would have lasted. I just didn't want the risk of losing it at the last minute if the battery did decide to die out. If it had been a little bit sunnier and we've been getting a little bit more sun exposure, because this one is also the solar one, I would have been fine for that. But yeah, getting that, I think it ended up being about 119 kilometers mine ticked in at.
Yeah.
With a few deviations for campsites and just a bit of sightseeing while we were there. 119 kilometer tick on Strava is quite a nice one to make sure you've done it.
Very good. Well, that's everything we took to Sweden. I suppose we can sort of hint at the fact that we're off to do the UK Classic in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
So yeah, expect more Classic content from us in due course.
But some slightly different Classic content this time around too, because we're going to be getting it from 2 different perspectives. So you're going to be walking the UK Classic with Sarah from our econ team, but I'm actually going back to volunteer as one of the volunteers on the UK Classic. So I'll be running a checkpoint this time around. same as I did last year, which is a really nice, rewarding experience. So hopefully you'll get to see some of that from us as well.
Yep, brilliant. Right then, you fancy a coffee?
Get to grinding. As with anything with this, if you have any questions about any of the specifics about our kit, we will give a full rundown and a link to a collection for our kit. But if you have any specific questions about how we got on, anything about the Classic, our kit, anyone else that we were with, or any of the sites that we saw, please do put a comment down below and we will get back to you. Yeah. Right, time for a coffee.
Excellent, cheers.